Chapter 4, Lesson 6, Objective, learn to evaluate expressions with square roots. Essential question, how do I estimate square roots and solve problems using square roots? The square root is between two integers. Name the integers and explain your answer. This is why we made a list of values in Lesson 5. We wanted to look at those perfect squares. If we can evaluate where the number that's underneath the radical fits in between the perfect squares, we can determine which two integers it falls between for a solution. So for example, the square root of 55. We know that 7 squared is 49, and we know that 8 squared is 64. There would be no other perfect squares between those, so 55 falls somewhere between the values of 7 and 8. We know that with 90 under the radical, we're looking for where that number fits between. The negative we can worry about at the end. So negative 9 squared is 81. Negative 10 squared is 100. So negative square root of 90 would be between negative 9 and negative 10, since 90 falls between the perfect squares of 81 and 100. So really we only needed to worry about the negative at the end for writing our answer. Let's see where square root of 80 falls. 8 squared is 64, 9 squared is 81. Now, one thing I need to mention is that our integers need to be consecutive, so 8 and 9, 9 and 10, 10 and 11. It can't be 8 and 12. They need to be back-to-back numbers. So we know that 80 is between 8 and 9, and if we think a little bit more carefully, because 80 is so close to 81, our value is going to be closer to 9 than it is to 8. So we're not looking for anything exact. So looking at negative square root of 45, we know that negative 6 squared is 36 and negative 7 squared is 49. So it's between 36 and 49, which means it's between 6 and 7. And because there's a negative, it would be between negative 6 and negative 7. Here's a word problem to look at. A tent was advertised in the newspaper as having an enclosed square area of 168 square feet. What is the approximate length of the sides of the square area? Approximate means we're going to estimate a little bit. Round your answer to the nearest foot. So we're going to have a whole number answer. So the length of each side of the square would be the square root of 168. 168 falls between the perfect squares of 144 and 169. The square root of those values are 12 and 13. So we know that the square root of 168 without using a calculator is somewhere between the answers of 12 and 13. We would approximate that it's about 13 because 168 is closer to 169 than it is to 144. So each side of the tent is about 13 feet long. Now let's use our calculator to find the square root of 600 and round to the nearest tenth. The calculator gives us 24.49489.742 on and on and on. To the nearest tenth means one decimal place. It's 0.4, but with a 9 following, we would round it to 0.5. That's it. Make sure your notes are filled out completely. On the left-hand side, write questions that could be answered from the material in your notes. Review your notes and complete the summary before class.